Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions. The mystery of the Silbury Hill Mystery, Europe's largest prehistoric mound with an empty center. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. Silbury Hill in Wiltshire, England, is the largest prehistoric man-made mound in Europe. It stands 40 meters high, covers over 5 acres of ground, and contains roughly 248,000 cubic meters of chalk, clay, and soil. By any measure, it is a staggering engineering achievement, equivalent in volume to one of the smaller Egyptian pyramids, built around the same time, by a society that left no writing, no images of its creators, and no obvious explanation for why it built the thing in the first place. If you were to build Silbury Hill using modern machinery, it would take a team of hundreds of workers many years. Without metal tools, without wheels, without draft animals capable of carrying the load, using nothing but antler picks, wicker baskets, and human backs, it required an estimated 18 million man-hours to construct. And that would be understandable if there was something inside. For 3 centuries, antiquarians, archaeologists, and treasure hunters have dug into Silbury Hill looking for its purpose. In 1776, the Duke of Northumberland sent miners to dig a vertical shaft from the summit to the base. They found nothing. In 1849, railway engineer Dean and his team drove a horizontal tunnel from the base to the center. They found nothing. In 1968, the BBC funded a major archaeological excavation led by Richard Atkinson, who dug a new tunnel to the center using modern techniques. They found nothing meaningful, some organic material, some insects, a tiny amount of debris. In 2007 and 2008, English Heritage conducted the most thorough investigation ever mounted, using ground-penetrating radar, drilling, and careful sampling. And they found nothing. No burial, no treasure, no king, no monument to the dead. The largest prehistoric mound in Europe contains nothing but dirt, which raises the question that has haunted archaeology for 300 years. Why? Why did a Neolithic community invest an estimated 18 million man-hours, the equivalent of several generations of organized collective labor, to pile up an enormous hill with nothing inside it? The conventional answer is that the ritual purpose was the construction itself, not any object within. But this raises deeper questions. What was the ritual significance of building a hill? Was Silbury Hill a representation of a goddess, a pregnant belly, a mountain, a cosmic axis? Was it a platform for astronomical observation? Was it a marker visible from the surrounding ancient landscape? And is the fact that it contains nothing actually the point? That the act of collective creation was itself the sacred purpose? The mound is silent, but it has been asking this question for 5,000 years. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we go further, if you are finding this investigation compelling, please take a moment right now to like this video, drop a comment below with your thoughts, and share it with someone who loves a good historical mystery. If you are watching on YouTube, hit subscribe and tap the bell icon so you never miss a new episode. If you found us through Facebook, tap follow on our page. It takes just a few seconds, and it genuinely helps us keep making these documentaries. Now, let us get back to the investigation. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the global puzzle of unexplained ancient construction, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Catastrophism, the idea that Earth's geological and cultural history has been shaped by sudden, violent events, rather than purely gradual processes, was once the dominant paradigm in science. It was then largely displaced by uniformitarianism, the principle, championed by Charles Lyell in the 19th century, that the present is the key to the past, and that change occurs slowly and continuously. The pendulum has since swung back. Modern geology and astronomy have confirmed that catastrophic events, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, rapid climate shifts, have profoundly shaped Earth's surface and life upon it. The Chicxulub impact that ended the Cretaceous is the most famous example, but it is not alone. The Younger Dryas cooling event 12,000 years ago caused radical shifts in human habitat within decades, not millennia. The Bronze Age collapse 3,000 years ago ended multiple interconnected civilizations in a generation. These events matter for archaeology because they reset the evidence. A major catastrophe does not merely destroy a civilization, it destroys the record of that civilization. Survivors carry only what they can remember, and memory degrades with each generation. After a few centuries, the grandchildren of survivors have myths where their grandparents had engineering manuals. What archaeologists find when they excavate ancient sites is not the full picture. It is the fragment that survived the last catastrophe. The full picture may be forever gone, preserved only in the ambiguous traces that puzzle researchers to this day. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the Silbury Hill Mystery, Europe's largest prehistoric mound with an empty center, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Silbury Hill is located near Avebury in Wiltshire, approximately 1.5 kilometers south of the Avebury Stone Circle. It stands approximately 40 meters, 131 feet tall, and covers a base area of over 2 hectares. Radiocarbon dating places the beginning of its construction at approximately 2400 BCE, though some estimates push this back to 2750 BCE. Construction occurred in multiple phases over several centuries, with the mound repeatedly enlarged by adding successive layers of chalk, clay, turf, and gravel. The base was deliberately leveled before construction began, and the hill sits within a shallow ditch that would originally have been water-filled, creating a moated platform. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen. Instruments malfunction. Researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the volume of material used to construct Silbury Hill is estimated at approximately 248,000 cubic meters. An experimental archaeology study estimated that building the mound required approximately 18 million man-hours of labor, roughly equivalent to building a small Egyptian pyramid. The chalk used for the mound's core was quarried from a ditch surrounding the base, which archaeologists have established was deliberately dug as part of the construction rather than being a natural feature. The organization required to coordinate this labor across multiple generations implies a complex social hierarchy with the authority to direct sustained collective effort toward a non-utilitarian goal. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine multiple tunneling operations have been conducted inside Silbury Hill since the 18th century. The 1,776 shaft from the summit, the 1,849 horizontal tunnel, and the 1968 BBC-funded excavation all reached the center of the mound and found no central burial, no treasure chamber, and no artifact of significance. The 1968 Atkinson excavation did find organic material including moss, mistletoe pollen, and the remains of flying ants, which provided radiocarbon dates, but no cultural information. The 2007-2008 English Heritage investigation used the existing tunnels together with ground-penetrating radar surveys and confirmed the absence of any buried feature at the center of the mound. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, Silbury Hill is part of a dense concentration of Neolithic and Bronze Age monuments in the Avebury area that also includes the Avebury Stone Circle, the largest in the world by diameter, the West Kennet Long Barrow, the Windmill Hill Causewayed Enclosure, and the Sanctuary Stone Circle. Together, these monuments form a ritual landscape that appears to have been actively used and modified over a period of approximately 500 years, between roughly 3,700 and 2,200 BCE. Silbury Hill's relationship to the other monuments suggests it was conceived as part of a planned sacred geography rather than as an isolated monument. Its position appears to have been chosen to be visible from Avebury while also commanding a view across the Kennet Valley. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of the internal structure of Silbury Hill, revealed by the various tunnel investigations and confirmed by the 2007-2008 study, shows that it was built in stages. The original mound was a smaller, earlier structure, a roughly circular mound of gravel and turf, which was progressively encased in larger concentric layers of chalk rubble. This step-by-step enlargement is analogous to the construction technique used for some Mesoamerican pyramids, where an original small platform was repeatedly encased in larger outer shells. The final outer casing of chalk rubble would have given Silbury Hill a gleaming white appearance similar to Newgrange's quartz exterior, making it visible across the Wiltshire downland for many kilometers. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding: the water table beneath Silbury Hill interacts with the surrounding ditch in a way that periodically floods the base of the mound, and this feature appears to be intentional. The original ditch was apparently designed to hold water, creating the effect of an island mound surrounded by a moat. Several researchers have noted that Silbury Hill is positioned at the source of the River Kennet, and that its relationship to water may have been central to its symbolic meaning. Michael Dames, in a 1976 study, proposed that Silbury Hill was a representation of the Neolithic earth goddess in a pregnant posture, with the water of the surrounding ditch representing amniotic fluid, and that its construction coincided with the Lammas Harvest Festival celebrated around August 1st. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. we are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Silbury Hill Mystery, Europe's largest prehistoric mound with an empty center. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that the ritual construction theory is the most widely held among archaeologists. The purpose of Silbury Hill was its construction, not any final object or burial within it. Under this view, the mound represents the accumulated sacred labor of an entire community across multiple generations, and its meaning was inseparable from the process of building it. This parallels interpretations of other Neolithic monuments where the act of collective effort, quarrying, transporting, erecting, was the ritual itself. Critics argue this explanation is too convenient and too circular, but proponents point to the absence of any utilitarian function and the sequential enlargements as evidence that the process of growth was deliberately perpetuated. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the goddess mountain theory, developed by Michael Dames and supported by mythologist Anne Ross, interprets Silbury Hill as a sculpted representation of the Neolithic great goddess, specifically as a depiction of a ant female figure viewed from above, with the surrounding ditch representing the womb waters. This theory connects the hill's construction to the Lammas harvest festival and interprets the entire Avebury sacred landscape as a mythological map of the goddess's body. While the imagery is suggestive, mainstream archaeologists largely reject this interpretation as insufficiently grounded in archaeological evidence and overly dependent on later Celtic mythology projected backward onto Neolithic culture. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the Axis Mundi theory proposes that Silbury Hill was designed as a cosmic mountain, a sacred center connecting the earth to the sky, analogous to Mount Meru in Hindu cosmology or Mount Olympus in Greek tradition. Under this interpretation, the hill was a platform for astronomical observation and ritual, its height allowing a priest or chief to stand above the surrounding landscape and commune with celestial powers. This theory is supported by the hill's commanding views across the Wiltshire Downs and its position at what appears to be a deliberately chosen sightline from Avebury. The water-filled ditch would have provided a reflective surface for astronomical observations at night. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Silbury Hill Mystery, Europe's largest prehistoric mound with an empty center, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes the consistent absence of any central burial or artifact in the hill's interior, confirmed by 3 centuries of invasive investigation culminating in the 2007-2008 English heritage study using ground-penetrating radar, is itself a critical piece of evidence. In an era when prominent individuals were consistently buried under mounds with elaborate grave goods, the absence of any burial in the most impressive mound in Europe is highly anomalous. This absence argues powerfully against the hypothesis that Silbury Hill was a tomb and pushes interpretation towards symbolic or procedural explanations. The English heritage study found that the center of the mound, where a burial would most logically be placed, is entirely devoid of constructed features. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented the sequential construction of Silbury Hill in multiple phases, each encasing and enlarging the previous structure, has been documented in detail by the 2007-2008 investigation. The earliest phase was a small circular mound of gravel and stakes, followed by a larger chalk mound, followed by the final massive chalk rubble structure. This sequential enlargement, over a period potentially spanning several centuries, implies sustained community investment and active maintenance of the site's sacred significance over many generations. The phases are analogous to the construction sequences identified at Avebury and West Kennet, suggesting coordinated development of the wider sacred landscape. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed the organic material found in the earliest phase of construction, moss, mistletoe berries, grass, and soil, has provided radiocarbon dates consistent with construction beginning around 400 BCE. More significantly, the presence of flying ants in the original topsoil layer, preserved under the mound for 5,000 years, indicates that construction began in late summer, between late July and early August, during the swarming season of ants. This directly supports the hypothesis that construction was linked to the Lammas harvest celebration around August 1st, one of the 4 major seasonal festivals of the Celtic year, though this connection is disputed since Celtic culture postdates the mound's construction by more than 1,000 years. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Silbury Hill Mystery, Europe's largest prehistoric mound with an empty center. Now, we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Silbury Hill is managed by English Heritage and is accessible by footpath from the nearby A4 road, though climbing the mound itself has been prohibited since 2000 to prevent erosion. The hill has become structurally fragile due to the multiple tunnels cut into it over the centuries, and a significant collapse occurred in May 2000 when the roof of Atkinson's 1968 tunnel caved in, creating a large depression visible on the summit. English Heritage subsequently undertook a major remediation project between 2007 and 2008 that stabilized the tunnels and conducted the most comprehensive archaeological investigation of the mound to date, using laser scanning, ground-penetrating radar, and careful sampling of the tunnel walls. Research continues at Silbury Hill and the broader Avebury landscape. LiDAR surveys have revealed previously unrecognized features, including possible timber structures and additional monument complexes in the surrounding fields. The relationship between Silbury Hill and the nearby Avebury Circle and West Kennet Long Barrow is increasingly understood as part of a deliberately designed processional landscape, with Silbury positioned to anchor a ritual circuit that moved participants through different types of sacred experience. Whether the mound's deepest purpose will ever be fully understood without written records from its builders is doubtful, but the question continues to drive new research and new technology. Silbury Hill remains archaeology's most eloquent enigma, a colossal monument to a purpose that has been deliberately, stubbornly, and magnificently kept secret for 5,000 years. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Silbury Hill Mystery, Europe's largest prehistoric mound with an empty center, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Silbury Hill ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please help us reach more people. If you are watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new documentary. If you are watching on Facebook, tap the follow button on our page to stay connected. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.